What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. Today I'm very excited to check out Isle of Monsters from Mayday Games. This is for 2 to 5 players. Ages 10 plus will take about 20 to 45 minutes to play. And in Isle of Monsters, this is a drafting / rock, paper, scissors games where you are going to be capturing monsters and then feeding monsters and then trying to scare people with your monsters with the ultimate goal of getting monster scare tiles. It's got some beautiful artwork, but does the game hold up to the artwork? Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Isle of Monsters. So first and foremost, we're going to handy dandy rule booklet, 13 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples. It's pretty well done. It should have you up and running pretty quickly, plus it's a pretty simple game, so I can probably teach you how to play it right now. Plus on the back, a quick reference, which I always love when game companies do that. Thank you so much, Mayday Games. So, in Isle of Monsters, you are going to be getting monsters, putting them into your cages, you're going to be feeding them, and then you are going to be taking them to the big scaring competition where you'll try to scare the crowd and also try to scare your opponents. A little bit of a weird theme, but I'll show you how it works. So we'll go over the components, we'll go into the gameplay. So right now I have a 3-player version of the game set up, but with more players, you're going to have more little side islands here. Essentially how it's going to work, unless you're playing 2 players, is you are going to have one person on your left and one person on your right, and you are going to have to be kind of fighting for resources, so to speak, with those characters, and also fighting for monsters. And I'll show you how that works a little bit later. In the middle of the board, you're going to have some food right here, and this is food that everyone can take. The food on the right side, only you and this player can take, and the food on the left side over here, only these 2 players can take. This food, I could not take. It's only for those 2 right here, so that's pretty simple. Now, there also are going to be monsters on each island. Depending on how many players you have, how the monsters work will vary slightly. And the monsters are going to range from numbers, I believe 1 through 8. Yeah, 1 through 8. And obviously, if you get one of the big ones, the 8, it's going to cost them a lot more food to eat. These are food tiles you are going to have to feed this monster in order for them to mature so they can go to the big scare-off. Whereas this little lowly 2 just needs a blue and a pink, and then he can go to the scare-off. But I'll tell you how that works a little bit later. So when you set up the game, you're going to set it up generally something a little bit like this, and then you are going to get ready to go. So the first phase you're going to do is called the nurture phase, and this really is the drafting phase, and it's very simple. On your turn, you have one of 3 options. You're just going to take 1 action per turn. You're going to do this until everyone passes. You can either A, capture a monster, and you can either capture the top monster over here or the top monster over here. So I'll just go ahead and do that on my turn. You can B, so let's pretend it gets right back around to me, feed a monster. How you do this is you're going to take one of the food circles from either on the left, on the right, or in the middle, and then you must immediately put it onto one of your creatures that you have down here into one of these spots. So you can't just be like, ooh, there's no pink, I'm going to take this pink because I think I'll need pink later. You can only take it if you're going to feed it to a monster now. So right now I might say, ooh, should I take this pink or should I take this pink? I'm going to take this pink out of the middle. And that would be my entire turn right there. And then it would pass back around to me. And it might be like, all right, this time I'm once again going to capture a monster. And I put it into this cage. Now, you are confined to only having 3 monsters grand total at any time that you are trying to mature in your cages. However, once you've completely feed them, they will actually exit your cage at the end of this round. I'll show you how that works in a second. So anywho, you're going to continue to go around feeding your monsters and drafting monsters into your cages until everyone has passed. Once everyone has passed, you will have what's called the mature phase. So the mature phase is where you are going to take the monsters that you have completely fed off of your board. So right now, I haven't fed any of these monsters, but for the sake of this example, let's just say that both these monsters were completely fed. So I would take all the food tokens that was on both of these guys, I'd put it back into the bag, and then these monsters are going to go into my hand. And everyone's going to be doing this simultaneously. So all the monsters that you can completely feed are going to be matured and then put into your hand. And now you are ready for the scare phase. And how the scare phase works is each player who has monsters is going to take one type of monster that they have. So for instance, these are earth monsters. this is a water monster, and this is a fire monster. There's only 3 type of monsters in the game. Think rock, paper, scissors. You're going to take all of a specific type. So for instance, if I had an 8 and a 4 and I had this 1 as well, I would have to combine all of them together. I couldn't be like, oh, this is my first time, this is my second time. No, you put them all together, and then everyone is going to cover them up so you can't see how many cards each player has, and then you're going to reveal at the same time. So let's just say I had this, the blue guy had that, and this guy over here had the fire. So we would all reveal at the same time. Now, the first thing you're going to try and do is you're going to try and scare the crowd. So at this point, whoever has the highest number is going to scare the crowd, and they're going to gain 3 of these scare points right here, which I actually think were misprinted. You put that in front of you, that's 3 victory points towards the end of the game. Bada boom. Now, next you're going to check to see if you scared anybody to the left or to the right of you, any of your combatants. And it shows in the upper right-hand corner what you scare. So for instance, dirt is going to scare water. So I would get 1 point for scaring this water right next to me. So whoop-de-doo, I got a point. This guy over here would scare the earth, so he would get 1 point, and then the water would also scare the fire, so they both would get 1 point. So that would be the end of that scare phase. So what you're going to do now is you're going to take all these cards, you're going to put them in front of you, because you will be able to use these throughout the game. You'll be able to use these later in different scare phases. Now that they're matured, you're going to be able to use them over and over and over again. However, not this phase. So next, what you're going to do is you're going to reveal your second type of card you had. So obviously for me, I might have a water or a fire, or I might not have anything. And then you're going to do that once again with the same thing being said. So let's just say it turns out that only 2 people have cards left. They reveal them. It's a 1 and it's a 6. And this guy, once again, just for having that little 6, is going to get 3 victory points. He'd do that right there. This guy, he scares fire, so he would get 1 victory point for doing that. Also, if it ever gets to the situation where you're the only one who can play cards, you just automatically get a point, which is pretty sweet. So once that is all done, you're going to get the cleanup phase where you're going to replenish the food. You're going to be reaching into the bag, putting more food out on the islands. And if you don't take food for some crazy reason, then you'll have more food on this spot. So for instance, let's say we took all the food off this one and we left 2 here for some insane reason. This one would now have more food. So there is a little bit of strategy there. You're going to add more creatures to the board. And this is also going to trigger the end of the game, because once you run out of creatures to put out on the board, that will signal that is the last round of the game. You're going to rinse, wash, and repeat, though, until that happens. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most scare tokens will be the winner of Isle of Monsters. And that, in a nutshell, is how the game is played. Alrighty then, Isle of Monsters from Mayday Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, and this is the main con I actually have with this game, is that this is a very light, simple game, which is going to be a turnoff to some people. I know for me personally, this is not a game I would consider a game night game just because of how light it is. I also think it's a little bit longer than you would want for a filler game, at least for me personally, so I'm not going to slot it in as a game night game. Also, the choices you make, there's not too many choices. I mean, during the first phase, it's either I'm going to take a monster, I'm going to take a food, or I'm going to pass. And those are the only choices you really have. Also, during the second phase, it's just, ooh, do I want to play the water? Do I want to play the fire? Or do I want to play the earth? Now, granted, there is this little game of cat and mouse and chicken where you're like, I know he's got the biggest number, but maybe he might get sneaky and try and play it second so he could win 1 and 2, so maybe I could sneak something in there. And there's a little bit of strategy. Do I go for the big monsters? Do I go for the little monsters? Do I take the food out of the middle? But really, the strategy in this game is very minimal, which is going to be a turnoff to some people. Any other cons I have with the game? Oh, component-wise, I'm pretty sure that the scare tokens were supposed to be hidden information, but they might have misprinted them. It's not a big deal because, honestly, you can just stack them on top of each other or just put your hand over them or just put them under your board or do any number of other things. So that didn't bug us at all, but it is something that I did want to mention because it was mentioned in the rules. That's all the cons I really have with this game. Moving on to the pros, Isle of Monsters is another consistently decent game from Mayday Games. I can definitely recommend this if you were in the market for a gateway game, if you were in the market for a family weight game. And I'm not going to say children's game, but I feel like kids ages 7 plus could easily wrap their brain around this game. What do they say? They probably say 10 plus. They say 10 plus. I'm going to say 7 plus. If your kid's in first or second grade, I think they can probably figure out how to play this game. It's just get monsters, feed them, and then decide when you're going to play them. And that's really it. But for what the game is, I did enjoy it. So why did I like the game? First and foremost, the rules are nice, the components are nice, the game looks good aesthetically. You're going to set it on the board, people will be like, ooh, what's that game? That looks really cool. The island look cool, the monsters look spectacular. The artwork in this game is incredibly well done. And I'm not one to gush over artwork generally. I'm not the kind of guy who's like, ooh, I love the artwork every other review. Most of the time I don't really care about artwork. But this artwork, very, very well done artwork. It just pops, which also kind of meets that family game vibe. Like, they're monsters, but none of them are scary, and that's something that I think they really wanted to try to go for, and they nailed it. Even the scare tokens, like these are people that are supposed to be like petrified of monsters, and they look kind of cute. They look like little oranges with mouths, and I like that as well. The game doesn't last too long. It doesn't outstay its welcome. I felt it played about consistently the same, 2, 3, 4, 5 players. 2 players was not bad at all. I didn't mind it at the higher player counts. And overall, it's pretty simple. If you're in the market for a gateway game or if you're in the market for a family game, Isle of Monsters is one that you might want to check out. If you're not, though, I think this is one you're going to definitely want to pass on, despite the awesome looking artwork. So that is Isle of Monsters from Mayday Games, one that I am going to keep to play with my family when they get older, but probably one that's not going to see too much play on game night before then. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below or in the comments below. Let me know. If you could have one monster, would you want a fire monster, would you want an earth monster, or would you want a water monster? For me personally, I think I would want a... Oh man, this is terrible. Like, I'm thinking of the logistics of it, of having it in your house. You don't want a fire monster because then it's going to set your house on fire. You probably don't want an earth monster because then it's a huge frickin' mess. And you probably don't want a water monster either because then it's going to get water all over everything. So I guess my answer would be... I would want an earth monster, but I would want it to be an outside earth monster, like an outside cat. So it just stays outside, it doesn't come inside. And then I'll just get like a big fence. So yeah, I want an earth monster. That way, I could keep it outside. But let me know in the comments below, what kind of monster would you like to have? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.